Welcome to Phimfinch podcast, where we like to talk about all things to do with young people, neurodiversity and the education system. Specifically, we like to talk about alternative provision and how alternative education can be a real opportunity to create alternative pathways for those that don't fit the mainstream model. I'm Shona Phimstar.
And I'm Sophie Grunvink.
Today's guest is Deepti Chauhan, and we'll be learning about her experiences of raising her son who's diagnosed with asperges. So Deepti, could you start by telling us when you first realised your son had autism?
Hi everybody. My youngest son, he was in nursery. I used to notice him actually playing with the other children, but on his own. He was sort of around them, but not actually playing with them. And I spoke to the teachers about it, and they says, it could just be him getting used to people and things like that. But there were just little certain mannerisms that he'd sort of even do at home, like he was just sort of always giddy. And we actually used to call him Tigger because he was always bouncing. He was just on the go all the time. And he never looked at you in the eye, from very, very young. And I just had this motherly gut instinct that something not wrong, but not quite right. And so then he had to go to speech and language therapy because obviously in his checkups, I'd say these things to the health visitors and they said, okay, let's put him through speech and language. And then he got put into a speech and language unit, a specific school, which integrated into mainstream as well. But they just said it's just a speech and language issue, nothing else. But even as he was growing up and, into sort of when he was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, I still felt something wasn't quite right. I think people looked at him and he looked normal as such. But as a mum, my gut instinct was telling me, and I didn't love him any less. We did nothing different in the sense that at home, there was no negativity, everything was positive, and we didn't put people down, and even if people came, I'd tell everybody, look, just be careful what you say to him and don't, sometimes he didn't like shouting, some people spoke quite loudly or anything like that. So, but apart from that, everything was normal at home. And to me, he is just my son and I loved him to bits, but I just needed that confirmation to satisfy me, and I think part of us think, did I do something wrong in my pregnancy? And could I have done something different? And is it my fault? And that's the mum guilt coming out a lot of the time. And I just wanted him to be the best that he could be as he got older. As a parent, that's the first thing you think of, is what's going to happen when you're not around. How's he going to survive? How's he going to cope? And what's he going to do? Mm-hmm. So for me, it was quite important to get the diagnosis. And it took me till he was about 14 years old to get it diagnosed, because I persevered. And the he had several child psychologists view him over a period of time, because it's a long process. It was then. I don't know what it is now, because he's 27 now. Mm. So it's a long process. They see him over several months, over several sessions, over different types of lessons, and they see him with me, they see him on his own, and they see how he interacts with other children, everything like that. So yeah, it was a long process, but I did it. Nothing else could have been done. He was in a special educational needs situation. He was getting a lot of help. But he was in a mainstream school, which I thought was very important for him to lead a normal life, because I think, yes, he has that autism aspect, but he still needs to lead a normal life. Even when you go out in the big wide world, there's not an autism section, just as there isn't a dyslexia section, there's not a ADHD section. You have to mingle and learn to live with it. And I think he's done that very, very well. But I think it's just important for me. And then the one thing I didn't like was that he got pigeonholed into saying he'd been nothing more than. But I thought, yes, he's got autism, but he shouldn't be pigeonholed. And then I fought for him and gave him the opportunity at home to say, look, doesn't matter what anybody else says, you go out and do what you want to do. So he went to college and got good grades. And then he says, Mum, I want to go to university. Okay, so let's go. And I said, well, he's in Loughborough anyway. college. So I said, because he wanted to do sports. So I says, oh, Loughborough's got the best sports facility. He says, no, Mum, I want to move away. I said, well, you can move away, still there. He says, no, I want to move completely away, live on my own. And he could have had help at Loughborough College, and he chose not to take it. He did everything himself. So he got good grades without any extra help, which he could have had. He could have had extra time in exams. As you know, as Senko, you know, if they have a certain condition, they can have a little bit of extra time. He didn't choose any of that. And even at university, because that's the first thing I told people, you know, when I used to go and see people, I says, look, you know, he has been diagnosed with asperges, and, you know, what kind of help will he get? And then this is, they'll support him and everything. But he says, Mum, I don't want anything. And he got a good degree. And then, you know, that was the proudest moment of my life. In fact, the anniversary came back on my phone. The photos came out a couple of weeks back. And I burst into tears again because I was just so proud of what he'd done, and he'd done everything himself. And in between all of this, getting good grades and getting on with his education, my mum had cancer, and I was sort of dealing with that. And then it wasn't till afterwards when they got the grades, and I suddenly said to my boys, you've got through your exams without me, and I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you. And the first word that Amal says to me was, Mum, we didn't need you, Gran needed you. So, you know, he says, look, we did fine, and Gran needed you more than us because she wasn't well, and, you know, we were fit and healthy and we were fine. So to me, that gives me so much pride that my boys have grown up to be good, outstanding people. And that's the most important thing as a mum, to you know, to teach your kids, is to how to be good people, you know, and how to
family.
Yeah.
How did your family respond when they found out that he had Asperger's? Did they take it well? Did they understand what it meant?
No, I don't think they did. It took a lot for me to make them understand. I think certain members of families says, oh no, it's just he'll grow out of it, sort of thing. And he may, if I hadn't have pushed, I may have come up with that attitude. I think if I'd been like other parents and says, you know, oh yeah, he'll just grow out of it, and there's nothing wrong, you know, and I don't know if anything different would have happened with his education. I don't know. Would he have turned out different? I don't know. But for me, it was important that I found out to help him, because I'm the mother. It's my job to help him, to learn things and to teach him things and to just love him. And the love is always there, even now. You know, he's far away, and he's the family miss him and everything like that. But with certain members of family, it was hard to explain to them, because one, I didn't understand it myself, you know. And so that's what I had to do. And because of his special education needs, I did a lot of research, what I had to do, which is why I says there was no negativity at home. And we always helped each, we spoke not a different language, we used different wording, because sometimes when he was younger, he couldn't cope with having too many words in one sentence. So we'd say, okay, we'll shorten that down and change that sentence slightly.
Could you give us an example?
If you told him go do this, this and this and this, like put your plate away, rinse it out, leave it on the sink, go and get your shoes and socks on because you're going to school now. He couldn't cope with that. He had to say, right, go and put your dishes away, go and brush your teeth, then put your shoes and socks on, and then get your bag to get ready for school, sort of thing. And that's how he coped. And it's just like little things like that. And as a mum, I just did it because I think maternal instincts play a huge role in this. And because if you know your son, you know, or your child or whoever it is, and especially if you've given birth to them, because you have that bond anyway. And I'm not saying that adoptive parents aren't, because I know a lot of really good adoptive parents, and they have that instinct as well. But, you know, because it's just having that sort of parental instinct to know that something not quite right, and you just get on with it, and because that's your job, you know. And to be honest with you, if somebody had told me being a parent is a good job, I'd say it's the best job in the world, but it's the hardest job in the world, because there's so much you've got to. not because you don't trust your child, it's because of other things, the environment, you know. Whereas my oldest son, he grew up playing in the streets, and he'd be out from 8 in the morning to late at night, and I wouldn't need to worry about him. Whereas my two, my middle one and my younger one, I sort of mollycoddle them a little bit because there's stuff happening, you know, children are being sort of picked up and taken away, and you had just heard all this horrible stuff in the news. And I protected them a little bit more, I think, and I perhaps should have done more and let them play. So they've sort of had a different upbringing, my middle and youngest son to my oldest son. My oldest son is very carefree, he's very, and the thing is, he was singing, dancing, doing cartwheels at 11 months sort of thing, and I kept comparing Ravi and Oma to him, and they says, well, you shouldn't do that. And then it took me a long while. Ravi was born premature, so he is really mollycoddled, and then oh bless him, he, you know, fit and healthy, not, you know, to look at. He was such a gorgeous chunky monkey, you know, you could just eat his cheeks and everything. But gut instinct, it just says, you know, something's not quite right, not wrong. And the family just, it took a while for them to get used to it. And, you know, when I'd go somewhere, I had to explain to them, if you talk to him like this, then he'll understand better. He's not being ignorant. Because I think sometimes people thought he was ignorant, but it's because his brain couldn't cope with what was being said to him.
And you spoke a little bit about school and help that they wanted to provide, and in some cases he had said, no, I don't want that support. But could you be a bit more specific about the support that school did give him, or what support you would have preferred that they gave him and they maybe didn't?
Right. He went into a speech and language unit from year 6, I think. But he'd had speech and language therapy while he was in a mainstream school. Sort of, he'd go once a week every sort of 3 or 4 months for 6 to 8 week turnaround. And then we'd, between us and the child psychologist and the health visitors and everybody, we decided to put him in a speech and language unit to help him out. But and then he stayed there throughout the whole of his education, basically up until he was 16. And the teachers
Sorry,
were
Deepti,
really,
when did he actually go into the speech and language unit?
in year 6, I think.
So that would make him
About 6, 7, is it? I can't remember. No,
Yes.
it would have been year 2, actually. Year 2 he went in, because he literally had half a year at year 1 in the mainstream, then he got transferred into the speech and language unit. The education authority were brilliant, the teachers were really good, and when I went to parents' evening, they showed me some really good work that he'd done, and he says he settled in really well, and to all intents and purposes they actually were really good with him, you know. So in terms of the education department, the school that was in, that's just my experience, I can't speak for other situations, but you know, they were pretty good. But when he went to high school, which is down the village from here, and he as I said, when it came down to his education, they says he will never get nothing more than a C in GCSE, and he got some B's, you know. To credit to him, you know, my main thing was, I always says to him, you do whatever you can do, as long as you've tried your best, that's all I can ask of you. I can't ask for anything more. And I says, have pride in what you do. And I think it showed, and he wanted to do something. And then when you go to the careers part, they says, oh, you know, you need to think about what he can and cannot do, you know, what he's going to be able to cope with, sort of thing. And, you know, is going to college a really good idea for him? I said, yes, it is, because that's what he wants to do. You've got to give him the chance, you know. And luckily things had started improving then in the whole education system, as far as, you know. And I think, to be fair, with special educational needs, they've always been there, but they've never been at the forefront as such, you know, except in exceptional circumstances. But I think that they started getting better at that point, and he went to college, and as I said, he got good grades there. He did what he wanted to do. He didn't take any help, although I asked for it, and they said they provide it if he wants it. And because obviously he's 16 there, he's sort of not quite a man yet, but nearly there, and he had his own views on things. So I said, that's fine. That's all I wanted, for him to be able to speak up and say, I want this, but I don't want that, you know. And being able to stand up for yourself, that was really important to me, because I'm quite bolshy. I stand up for myself, and I won't let anyone sort of push me around. And I didn't want that for my kids either, not in a sort of violent way, but you know, everybody has to be able to speak up and say no or yes to what they want to do and don't want to do, because I think that's very important, especially in this day and age when peer pressure is so high, you know, and to be seen to be in with the crowd, you do some things you don't always want to do, and as long as you've got the guts to say yes or no to whatever the question is, that's, as a parent, that was a really good thing for me, that he says, Mom, I don't need it, you know. To me,
What sort of
yes,
things were they, Deepti? What sort of things were they sort of offering that you thought that he thought he might not have needed? What
well, any extra
yeah.
help at all, you know. In the classroom, you didn't have any help at all, you know, like you have a assistant in the classroom. My middle son, he had 20 hours at secondary school. College, he didn't have anything, and uni, he didn't have anything. But Amar said, no, I don't want any assistance at all. He didn't take the assistance with the exams, the extra help or anything like that. And all his coursework he did himself. I used to ask him, do you need any help? No. And when I went to the parents' evenings, they said, yeah, he's getting on okay. You know, he's knuckling down. And I didn't see him in the social interaction side at that point with college mates or anything like that, because he had to go to a different town. Basically, it's just a bus ride away, not too far, but you know, because me and my husband were working, we couldn't physically drop him off and then go back to work or anything like that. So I said, you've got to go on the bus. And he said, yeah, that's fine. And yeah, he just got on with it. Basically, he just wanted to do well, I think, himself, you know. But I think that came from not me pushing him, but giving him the opportunity. Even at home, you know, they're says to read to your child and do this in the evening, but because he was in such a high work field at school, when he came home, he didn't necessarily want me to teach him. He just wanted me to be mum, and that's what I did. If he wanted a hug, I hugged him. If he wanted to play, I let him play. If he wanted to watch a video, I let him watch a video, because he did a lot of work at school anyway. And then, but all the games and stuff that I had in home were educational anyway. And any games we played were always educational. And it's like doing stuff around the house. It was all sort of my educational part was incorporated into anything we did as a family, or with him one-on-one sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, like he always made his own sandwiches, because he says he didn't want school dinners, so he made his own sandwich. It was always chocolate, you know, every single day it was chocolate, but that's what he wanted. You know, he'd get up early in the morning, he'd make it, and Mum, I'm ready. I'm ready for when the taxi comes to pick me, or I'll walk it to school or whatever. And it's just his thing he needed to do. And even now he's quite set in his ways. But I accept that, you know, it doesn't interfere with him being a good human being, a good person, a funny person. He interacts with family now a lot more. He talks a lot more. He's come out of his shell quite a lot, which is quite good.
Yeah, I was going to say, how does well, there were two questions I was going to ask you, so and you've sort of touched on both, so I'm going to go back a little bit, just to ask about, you said you did research, obviously, when you found out that your son had he was on the autism spectrum. And so where did you do your research, and then how, from that, what support did you put in place for him?
As I said, all from about 6, 5, 6, I mean, all the toys we had were always educational, fun, but educational toys. And we had lots of games, and I taught them from a very, very young age, don't write on walls, don't scribble on walls. I gave them a massive whiteboard and magnetic letters and stuff they could play with. So we were always sort of doing the phonetics and everything like that, and they were pretty good. But both Ravi and Amar, from quite a young age, they knew the alphabet phonetically because I taught them that. And, you know, in terms of that, that's how I did it. And says, oh, look at that. How do you think we spell that? And I'd help them out with that, and they enjoyed that. And they always had and they always had colouring, they always had paints, they always had building blocks, they always had stuff that they could learn from and, you know, get their minds thinking. And then, but they also had the fun time just sitting watching a DVD, nothing more, because that's what they wanted. You know, my only thing was that they had to do the chores, 2 minutes worth of chores. As once you've got that out of the way, once they ask you to do something, you know, I need you to do it now, not dawdle or anything like that. That was my only. And the rest of the time they were just being kids, having fun, doing what they wanted to do, and, you know, playing with their toys. And, you know, obviously they all had their favorite little ones that they wanted. And with Amar, it was sort of like he was always sort of fiddling with his fingers, you know. That was one of his things, which is part of the autism spectrum, is that they fidget, you know, and they can't look at you. And even right now he's not a loner, but he does like his own company. But then again, I like my own company. I'm really good with people, but I also like to be by myself and just sort of chill out and not have to think about anything. And I think a lot of people are like that as well. So yeah, it's he's grown up quite a lot, and I'm so glad that he's grown up in the way that he has, because I know he's confident in himself, he's able. And that was really important to me, that he was able to get to that stage, because as I said before earlier on, a parent's first thought is what's going to happen when you're not there. So.
And he does manage now in social situations.
Yeah, he's fine.
And how did he, what's the difference between how he dealt with that when he was younger, maybe, to how he deals with them now?
He speaks up more for himself, and he still gives one word answers. If you ask him, yeah, no, you know, there's still certain things which I've noticed, although I don't say anything to him. Sarcasm, sometimes quite high sarcasm, he doesn't quite get, but that's fine. He's very witty in himself. He comes out with one-liners and he just makes me cackle. He really does. You know, because obviously his brain's thinking all the time, and he does understand sarcasm, he does understand humor and all of that. So in that sense, social interactions are good, and he's made some good friends where he's working right now, because after university he actually went off to teach in China. So, you know, all by himself, first time going away abroad on his own, and I was dying inside thinking, oh my God, what have I done to my child? But he loves it, absolutely loves it. And I think he'll be there for the next few years because he likes it so much. I think it gives him a sense of confidence, a sense of achievement, and his pride in his work is tremendous. He says he's got a group of children, because he works in the kindergarten stage, and he's doing English and he's doing some PE lessons with them and everything. And he's so well respected by this kiddies, and he gets they have a teacher's day in China, and he gets brilliant gifts. I mean, he goes to a private school, so the parents are well to do, but it's just like well thought out gifts for him and everything like that. And he loves them. He says, I want to take them to the end of because I think they have a 3-year stint from kindergarten to sort of nursery or year 1 or something like that. I don't quite understand the Chinese education system, but he says, I've got 3 years with them and I want to finish those 3 years off.
And now that he's an educator himself, has he ever mentioned to you that he can notice maybe asperges within some of the young people that he works with? Has he ever mentioned anything like that?
Do you know, I've never really asked him that. It's not that we don't talk about it. He knows he's got this condition, and you know, and I'm quite open about it, even when I talk to people. He doesn't say anything himself. I do think he just accepts it. It doesn't bother him, you know. It's not something he focuses on. So, but I've not really asked him if he's noticed it in other children. I'll have to ask him that. That's a pretty good question.
Don't have to.
No, it's interesting because I'd like to know what his view is on everything, because obviously, sorry, that's my budgie squawking. She wants to get in on the conversation. I'd like to ask him what he feels and what he thinks, how he can help other children, because his main goal is to help children now. The kids seem to be drawn to him for some reason. Everywhere we go, all the kids love him. So he's very patient with them. So I don't know if that's because, I don't know, I had the patience with him. I'm not sure. You know, it's sort of rubbed off, or I don't know, but he's very good with children. All I know is that all the kids seem to be drawn to him, you know, and as much as he found it difficult to play with other children when he was younger, he seems to speak at their level, in the sense that, you know, he understands what they want. And he's been able to help out a few kids in China. So, but I will have to ask him that, because that's got my curiosity now. That has.
I was just wondering if a parent did think that their child might have a special educational need or something, they thought there was something that they should look into in more detail, what advice would you give to that parent?
Persevere. Don't let anybody fob you off, because I know with the COVID and everything, you know, there's a lot more sort of influence on mental health, but it's not necessarily, it may just well be that, you know, it has stressed a child out, and it has been stressful for everybody, and homeschooling and everything, and I understand all of that. But aside from all of that, if you think your child is not, I don't want to say anything wrong, but you don't feel something is right, then go and speak to your GP, go to speak to your health visitor, speak to the school, speak to the head teacher, make appointments and persevere with it, because at the end of the day, it's your child, and don't let anybody fob you off until it's all been investigated. It may well just be the stress of the past couple of years, and if that's what it is, then at least they can get help with that as well. However small, however big you think it is, I would just advise parents to just persevere with it and carry on badgering at people, because I know there's a huge shortage of staff with speech and language therapists, because it's, you know, it's not the fancy job as such, but it's a very needy job. It's a brilliant job, and if you can help, think of children you could help. In my personal opinion, every child needs speech and language unit at some point in their education, even if it's just for a couple of weeks, because everybody has a blank spot. Oh, I just can't get this. You know, we all say that. And I think in kids, if we can get past that little stage, it'll help in their confidence, it'll help in their education, because it's that one little thing, stumbling block, whenever they hit it, for whatever reason, it sort of stays in that child's head. And I've seen some children and family members, and they said, you know, we can't do something because she doesn't like it, or he doesn't like it, or he doesn't get on with it, he doesn't know how to do it. But if you think about how and why they don't get on with it, it's possibly linked back to something that they just couldn't get their head around. And we as adults, we do that all the time. We think it's old age, but you know, but there has been stumbling blocks along the way. And it may well, in the older generation, it may well be old age, because you forget things. And I know I'm getting to that stage, I'm forgetting stuff and everything. But every child needs some sort of support. And I just wish all schools had people, and I know they have therapists, some schools have therapists and counsellors and stuff like that, but to see each child improve after they've had some sort of session with a therapist. And it's not to say it's not a shameful thing, I don't think. It's like a teacher. You teach, you help somebody, and you explain something to them. A counsellor or a therapist, that's exactly what they do. They explain and they listen, and they think about a different way to think about things, you know. And it's not necessarily that the teacher doesn't want to, the teacher hasn't got time. And as I said, no disrespect to any teachers, teachers do an absolutely fantastic job, and I cannot commend them enough, and I know they've had a heck of a time over the past couple of years. But I think teachers just can't get around to everything because, you know, it's just the way the job is right now. And it's just shame really, because I know a lot of teachers, people who are teachers, and they want to help children, but they're not allowed to because of time constraints and management constraints, shall I say. And it's just a sad thing, I think, with particularly when that's our future, the kids are our future, you know, they need all the help they can get. Which is why one of my things is I want to set up centres where children can go and just come and talk, and we can show them the way that there's more to life out there, and, you know, and perhaps stop them from getting into stuff they should be getting into, you know. Again, it's just giving the support, because I know my son, if we hadn't encouraged him and supported him in everything, you know, I don't know, he may well have done, I don't know, but I gave him the belief in himself. And I think all children need that, and some children don't get it, they don't think, but all children can do anything that they want to do. It doesn't matter what their situation at home, what their educational needs are, however they think, all children can do what they want to do given the right circumstances. And I'm very passionate about that, because I think, you know, particularly when Emma was pigeonholed, you know, into, oh, well, he won't be able to do it much, but he's gone on to be a teacher, and what better job is there than teaching kids? You know, it's amazing.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing your experience of parenting with us today, Deepti. Hopefully that the listeners have learned something. And I think the most important thing that I heard from what you said was it's all about building that confidence in the young people, no matter what their needs may or may not be. But if you can build the confidence in somebody to succeed in whatever it is that they're passionate about, then they will do well. So thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much, Deepti.
Bye.
Bye. Phimfinch was set up to empower young people with the tools and confidence to achieve success. If you'd like to be part of our journey, please check out our website www.phimfinch.co.uk or email us at info@phimfinch.co.uk.